So, I decided to fire Blue. You know, he just isn't as well suited to the environment of YouTube as I am. I figured I'm somewhat intelligent to take over this channel on my own.
Hola, all. Welcome back to Soul Mechanics and our reality check. No, wait, this isn't reality checks. We're not in reality checks anymore. We've expanded. No, this is going to be a principal dynamics video addressing our first Catalyst event video, at least, and maybe not the first Catalyst event, but addressing currency as a Catalyst event. And I should like to dedicate the video to Juanita Dunn for coming through on that report. Lady, it's awesome. Thank you very much. It's super helpful. We're going to make use of it to the best of our abilities. Herein, you just fucking rock. You are always like one of the coolest people ever. Please keep it up. And secondarily dedicated to Miguel Angel for having, well, simultaneously provided a boost that really perked things up while at the same time caused for us to be super late. But,
Whoops.
Yeah, in either case, we had fun. I was very happy to meet you in person, man. We're going to do some kick-ass shit going into the future, especially with the Contact Project. Anyways, so, to kind of briefly catch up, something that I wanted to say, for anybody that we engage, that we deal with, most specifically the YouTubers, our target assets, as it were, we are here to be helpful. Sometimes the ways in which we are attempt to be helpful could be brazen, if not brash, or even seemingly hurtful.
We're just people having fun.
We are joking around most of the time, and developing a firm, strong, loyal sense of humor, you know, like a greater, expansive sense of humor. That's very, very important, especially if you are living a rough and tumble life, you know, such as myself and others that we might be speaking directly to at the moment. You know, the harder and the more painful and damaging your life becomes, the more you need that. It's not like that's not an indicator for you to be a hard ass and not have humor. You need that humor all the more. It's the most important sense you have. Especially
if you're dealing with social media a lot.
Because, I mean, you're going to run into people like us. So, and I mean, if we do something that you think is out of context, that's because it is. We're responding just to immediate, like a single video. So, I mean, that's, sorry about that if it upsets you, but yes, we are being funny. We're trying to be funny about it. We're trying to be helpful, and ultimately, we are helpful. I mean, we can see the ways in which we've already helped you guys, the people we're talking to. But I should like to say that, you know, we're trying to be friendly. Ultimately, we're trying to bring people together. We're trying to unite everybody. We're trying to build a greater community here where we can all work together because we need to be. We cannot be divided anymore. And if you decide to be friendly with us, you will have the most die-hard, loyal friends to the end, throughout the duration. Unless it comes to a point where you're breaking protocol or you're just, you know, deliberately in the wrong, we will go to bat for you under any and every circumstance and have your back every step of the way. However, if you decide to be unfriendly with us, Sweetie Cheeks and I, we're here now. We're in play. And you will likely have an extremely troublesome nuisance throughout the duration. And we will be here throughout the duration of the remainder of your life. So,
oh my God, that's so extreme.
well,
That's a bit much.
that's what's happening. So,
Ish.
is very,
Ish.
very much so. So, all right, to catch us up on the Catalyst event, the previous 2 Catalyst event videos we did for this currency videos, I essentially explained how we didn't speak to currency so much as we spoke to money and the evolution of the values that lead into money.
Well, you did. That was what, back in a few months ago.
It was a long time.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I watched both of them, part 1 and 2, that you did by yourself. And when I first thought of the thing, like it popped up during some kind of conversation we were having, and I thought, oh, currency. It's such an interesting thing, and why the first thing I thought was, what's the etymology of the word? Where did that word come from? Why do we refer to money as currency? And the moment that... Who is that? What is that?
For some lady blows a girl's dress up.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, the moment that I looked it up and the origin of the word just being something, an idea that's universally agreed upon, that's it. That is anything that can be considered to be current is currency in and of itself. And so it doesn't really have that much to do with money, but I can see why the term lends itself to talking about money and distributing wealth and that kind of thing. There's one of the definitions was to change hands or something like that from person to person, but one of the iterations, just current, that's it. Agreed upon information, universally agreed upon information, and I feel like that's something that is slowly going out the freaking window.
Yeah.
And one by one, the agreed upon information in this world, they're dropping like flies.
Yes, and that's
definitions of words, ideas, ideologies.
This is why the currency event, the currency artifact, is so very important, because this, obviously, the second Catalyst event that we addressed in this playlist, in this series, was language. And you can see how the two of these, well, at least if you don't see, we're going to show you how the two of these play into each other. And each and every Catalyst event plays into each other. It's usually going to be 2 that are adjacent, that play into each other more so than others, but they all play into each other, most specifically when we start nearing the crown and get to the actual crown chakra of this system, plays into everything. And it's really, that's the one that's going to be causing all the trouble. But moving up from the root, we speak to currency, which is effectively, as you said, it's the agreed upon whatever, but the term is applied to money, and that's where we're most going to associate it. So again...
But there's so much more under the surface of that.
Right, and that's what we're going to address here. But the nature, as we know, so far as we know, as yet, the nature of the relationship between value and matter is associative and implicative. That's what's presented. That's what essentially this substance of existence is made of: associations and implications. And this term, it's attached directly to money, so that's the association that's made, and it thereby implies that, obviously, it implies that money is going to be the current agreed upon thing, or in other words, it's going to be the most important or most impressed thing that we have in play, which is
the most widely agreed upon subject.
It essentially lays the foundation for the mind to drift into thinking that money is the bedrock, money is the everything, and of course that's what we think, that's what it is, that's how things work. Money makes the world go round.
It's a sad reality, but day to day, I mean,
this is how it's designed.
To survive, yeah.
And that's what we went into with the original 2 videos, was that how money itself, most specifically the modern USD version of currency, is so very specifically designed, like cram-packed with values that are just affecting the discernment upon your brain, speaking to your brain in such a way as to thoroughly convince it that this is just the most important thing you could ever come across, and indeed is to be worshipped even. And it does give us our reason for being. We work a 9 to 5 to take care of our family. Everything we do relies on us making money.
Well, hell, even the churches and the people that are running the churches, that's what they do. They make money, and they rake in the freaking dough. Not to mention the super scammy televangelists that preach
they're exempt from taxes.
Yeah, they preach the thing where you give up all your money and Jesus is going to give it back to you, like abundance.
I don't remember
thing or whatever. Anyways, and they're on TV. I'm talking about the real extreme versions, like that one guy who people were asking him why do you have a jet, dude? Right, yeah. And he was like, well, God told me that I needed a jet so that I could spread his word or whatever, so of course I need a jet. Duh. I mean, what kind of priest would I be if I didn't have a freaking
of course,
jet?
If I don't have a bigger jet, right. Then...
And, there's, old ladies giving up the last of their money and foregoing medical treatments just so that they can give this guy money, and he's riding around in a freaking jet.
I mean, if you take a look at it, right there, old ladies giving up the last of their money. Why? Because these old ladies, they're nearing the end, and I mean, if they're involved with this religion, they've been indoctrinated to believe that they really need to impress God here, and because God just might decide to throw them in the trash, and by trash I mean lake of fire.
Money takes the form of that last minute forgiveness that people talk about.
God's really interested in money.
Yeah, the last minute forgiveness, the people that are well, I can do whatever I want basically. And when I'm on my deathbed, all I have to do is say, hey, I'm sorry, Jesus, and then you're good to go. You're gonna be in, you're gonna be in heaven for eternity.
Essentially, I gotta bribe my priest so that he decides to be kind enough to absolve me, because I mean, he has the power to do that. It doesn't matter what you've done, he can absolve you.
It just goes to show the hierarchy of, if there are people worshiping, the church, and they, in turn, are working for that cheddar, they're working for the dough, so they're worshiping the money, too.
Money, you could say, just like we've said about scientism or religion, money is like our very own Frankenstein's monster. It has, whether we know it or not, the people running the show, the people who are the one percenters or what have you, whomever it is that's really running things and then really at the top of the food chain here, they are. Do the tongue thing.
Ew.
Like Jim Carrey.
The eyeball.
Jim Carrey did the tongue. But even the people way up there, they might think that money belongs to them, but no, they belong to money. Everybody belongs to this again, uniquely useless object that, I mean, really not only has it no value, but it's actually devaluing. I mean, we're destroying trees to make this shit, and we kind of need those.
Well, we're also destroying trees to make toilet paper.
Yeah.
We need that, so.
I mean, we could find alternatives, but this does.
A bidet.
But this speaks to we're putting a few factors and a few values in play here with this introductory segment that they're going to become very useful later when we start addressing the higher catalyst events, because this is how they play into them. So keep these things in mind, especially when we're speaking of religion, and as I said, the churches, they're exempt from taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, can anybody take an actual eyes open look at that, and then go ahead and tell me in what way is it appropriate for us to make churches exempt from taxes in order to
So
effect
weird.
a separation between church and state. How does that make sense?
I don't know. You know what I heard recently too, on par with the ridiculousness of the churches not having to worry about taxes. Did you know that the NFL is technically considered a non-profit organization, and I don't think they pay taxes either.
Well, that would make perfect sense.
There's so much money floating around
Our
those people,
sports,
though.
our sports
Another
franchises, they
worshiping,
are,
that's a church too.
they are very, very, very similar.
It's a church too.
Stadiums are churches. We worship this game. It's very, very much the same thing. And
There's the mythology. I guess mythology is kind of a weird word, but there's the well-known, the universally understood and agreed upon idea that Philly fans, I guess, are like super nutso, and even if they win games, like big games, like there's people lighting cars on fire in the streets and like riots and shit, and like storefronts being smashed and cops everywhere, and even after they win, like I've heard that's like a thing, is that everybody kind of knows, like, oh, don't go to Philly after the whatever big game, whatever it's called. I always thought that was so funny too. It's like, you won and you're fucking destroying your city. Like, it's
kind of, I mean, it's
drunk people.
It's funny,
freaking out. It is ridiculous.
But it's scary, obviously, and it's sad, and I mean, it speaks to the nature of the situation. Like, it shows how similar sports are to religion.
Totally.
And, I mean, where I mentioned that the church is exempt from taxes, it's the only viable, legitimate reasoning we'd have exacted that discernment is because the church is running the state. Like, they don't have to pay taxes because they own the franchise.
Right. And I think that's how everything began. I mean, way back when in ancient times, the church and state, it wasn't like a separate thing. Like, that's how the state became, the state. That's how the government became the government, as
right.
they were working for,
it's kind of,
the
it's
priests,
essentially how
and vice versa.
Christianity came into play, really, was the Roman Empire was heavily religious, and that was the discrepancy there. But we won't get into that. That's not a part of this. But we'll get to that later. But with currency, we want to try and clear up the actual meaning of this term. It's so heavily associated to money, we need to break that association because it's not useful. It's damaging.
It's an interesting... I think it's an interesting word too, and when you really...
It's a cool word, I love it.
Yeah, when you really think about like what it means, it just fascinated me that there's so much more underneath. You could just say money. If you're just talking about money, you can just say money, but a currency is like something that's so much more and has values spread out in every aspect of people's lives in the world, and it's fascinating. I think it's great. And the fact that we're losing it.
That we're losing the word?
We're losing the currency itself. We're losing the ability to agree upon things.
Right.
It freaks me out, and it makes communication fucking impossible.
Right, and that's where we're getting to. That's what we're fighting for. The initiative, soul mechanics, the whole entire network. We're fighting to prevent this because we're gonna come to a point where we've gone too far, and again, another Frankenstein's monster, this Tower of Babel scenario gets out of control, and we no longer have the opportunity to try and put the brakes on it because we can't get a fucking thing across to anybody.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel thing. So God apparently was displeased at man's arrogance in themselves for trying to build a tower that could touch the heavens or some shit. And so he came down and struck everyone with different
The tower
languages.
rivaled his glory.
Yeah, it rivaled whatever that means. I mean, It's like an F-450. What, are you feeling inadequate a little bit there, God? Anyways,
Yeah.
that's just a joke. I think it's funny. Anyway, so he separated everybody and kind of made different languages. He just split all the communication apart so that nobody could talk to each other, and that's supposedly supposed to be the origin of different languages around the world. And why? Why would God pop up and be like, I don't want you people talking to each other anymore? like a pissed off preschool teacher. That's utterly absurd.
Right.
That is an absurd idea.
It is. I mean, at face value, you look at that story, it makes the very littlest of sense, if any, and it's entirely absurd. It's not even a good story. But
it's weird too. That's real weird.
If you look at it with the spotter's eyes, you see it, the value in it that's speaking through this story that the writers likely had not intended to place there. They didn't know what they were doing. It was, in fact, the Word of God. It was God speaking through them, but it has nothing to do with the story. It's telling the story of how we are divided, most specifically in our language, and how we are, even at this point now, attacking our own language, attempting to destroy it. We're taking pickaxes to the foundation of and language is our operating system. Language is the most important thing we have in play. Our communicative abilities, that's our association to each other, and that's our ability to put implications into play.
And if you get rid of it, then what the fuck are you
damage it
left with?
irreparably, you
might as well
fill it, load it up with glitches.
Just have everybody walking around with their fucking mouths sewn shut.
I mean, this is obviously going to be speaking to the whole political issues and the identity. What's it called? I should call it an identity syndrome. Just this identity politics thing. But that I should like to say that it would seem at this point, because what I wanted to say is that the problem here, or the challenge rather, it doesn't lie in where we place what we value, like money. People value money above all other things because it's designed to do essentially it's the most just elaborately contrived tool, a cue, kind of just a program in and of itself to trick the brain into just outright worshiping it. And that's what people place most of their value into, it would seem.
Well, there's more to that, though, I think. I don't think it's fair to just put everybody in this group where everyone's just worshiping money. What's wrong with everybody? I have to provide for my family, or at least contribute, and I worry about that a lot, and I work a job that I don't necessarily love. It's a little bit of a sacrifice, so it's not just because like I worship money. It's because I want to feed my daughter, and I want to be able to
speak to the thing you said about how you sacrifice your person.
Yeah, I mean, a work environment. He's always had problems finding like a comfort level or a safety zone in a job. Like,
I get dropped in jobs usually because there's a discrepancy between myself and like one other person
like
who doesn't like me.
interpersonal problems.
Personal problems because I present my life. Because I don't make a distinction, and I take such pride in the work that I do that I like to present my life, and I like to get people involved. I do, oddly enough, run into people incidentally, synchronistically, who share all the same interests that we do and want to work with this and are interested, but then there's going to be the one person who doesn't like me for whatever reason, because of what I'm interested in, because of maybe I stole one of their friends. That happened with the factory job.
It could be anything. It doesn't matter what the thing is.
Right.
The idea is that when you're doing the daily grind kind of thing, it's about slaving yourself for freedom. Like, I want to be able to have the freedom to fill up my fucking fridge and to fill up my gas tank, and to be able to, when I see something on Amazon, be like, oh my god, I want this, awesome.
You know, when I saw
that kind of thing is a freedom that I'm buying with my time.
You're buying it.
Yeah.
It's a freedom that isn't free. When I had the dream, I don't know if
Nothing's
I told you
free,
about this.
though, right?
I had a dream. Yeah, it's all free. That's what we're gonna get at here. I had the dream about Ariel that I thoroughly believe she had actually visited and contacted me through this dream. And we do know that shared dreaming is possible. We've done that before. Yeah. We've actually learned how to induce it in some cases. But to briefly, that's actually what the initiative is based on, a dream I had about a future where the status initiative was a shared dreaming network that had kind of built an alternate world. So that's something to look forward to. We're going to do that, but...
Dude, that's the Matrix.
It is, totally. I had a dream where Ariel visited me, and she showed me the Matrix. She showed me how it was all built and, like, the hidden world behind the scenes. And we went on this wacky adventure. It was awesome. But she told me, toward the end of it, the last thing she told me before she left, she said, we're moving towards this change, this ascension phase, so to speak, that we're moving into the next level. And she said, those who slave will proceed.
That's interesting.
It is super interesting,
well,
especially because you just used that word.
Exactly. Sometimes I do feel like I'm, you're slaving, and that's like it's a fucking term, right? I'm slaving over a hot stove all day. Like, it doesn't really mean slavery. You know what I mean?
It does.
But it does in a certain way. But I'm okay with doing that for a short chunk of an 8-hour chunk of my day.
What makes it all that much worse?
But I'm getting what I need from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to look elsewhere.
Right.
And beg and borrow and steal.
Bum off of cheeks all the time.
Right, you son of a bitch. But that's kind of the point, though, is that maybe it's, I don't know, is it just protecting your ego then?
In what way?
By doing that? Because so you don't want to beg, borrow, and steal because it makes you feel bad or you look like a piece of shit. I don't know. Whatever the case may be.
Oh, yeah,
I
certainly.
feel satisfied when I can go and get, like like I said, a fridge full of food.
She feels satisfied when she has a full fridge, when she can pay for things. I feel
because it's
like
protection.
I
it's
feel
a security thing.
I feel so proud and satisfied when I'm working a job, when I have money, and when I can provide, whatever other people might want for them. I can get gifts and shit or spot people money, whatever happens. I feel so good about that. I feel, she feels good when she has the money to provide. I feel fucking terrible, when I have to come, like, I'm afraid of doing it, even when I have to ask Sweetie Cheeks to help me out with something.
Right, yeah, it sucks.
It's terrible.
Nobody wants to do that ever, so it's kind of an ego thing.
So, yeah, it's definitely that, but what she had said, what you had said, is that, specifically, that what I would need to do is not present my personal life and,
is to shield.
Just not, that's a completely separate factor. The job is separated and distinct. And basically what she said, though, verbatim, is that you're sacrificing your person for that time. And you are, because you can't express yourself. You can't be yourself.
Not that you can't.
You can, but you're
likely
to
get fired. You're going to fuck it up. Yes, exactly. You're going to fuck it up.
Especially if you sleep with your supervisor.
That is not a good idea, and it's not going to work. But it's also a matter of protecting, too. It's not just a sacrifice.
But it is. It's protecting.
It's protecting because you're separating that little chunk of your 8 hours of your day. You are putting that in its own little space.
Right.
Because you don't know the other people that are there, and what they're like and how they're going to react. And so you do need to shield yourself and shield them a little bit because, you know, I don't know, people are weird, right? People get pissed off about stupid shit. You never know what's going to happen.
And that's the thing, is the crisis that we're running into here is people are getting pissed off and offended about stupider and stupider shit to the point where we're on the verge of a kind of a civil war incident. And
not to be alarmist or anything.
Man, there's so many things I need to say here. Just bear with me here. So, it is protecting, but in this protection kind of mode, what you're doing is you're hiding your true self, and
a little bit.
You are
from certain people.
You're in a manner of speaking, or at least in a sense, you are forced to hide yourself, and you gotta always look at the associations and the implications in play. This is how this scenario is designed. It's designed to force you to hide yourself. And the way you're going to feel about that, the way yourself is going to feel about that is abused.
Yeah.
You are abusing yourself in order to purchase this so-called freedom that you're provided constitutionally.
Maybe freedom is a little bit of not the right word. Maybe security.
Well, no, it's the right word. It's perfect. Security works too.
Yes,
security
it's a security thing where you want to be in a good position to be able to deal with everyday shit.
That security is a perfect word there, because what that implies is that if you do not do this, you are not secure, and thereby you're not just merely abusing, but also frightening, even traumatizing yourself in an effort to keep up with this program that they've put in place, whomever they are. Nobody's put it in place anymore. Somebody built it a long time ago.
Yeah, eons. But there's not just the implication of not being secure. In reality, there are many aspects as to the reality of not being secure.
Right.
So it's not just like, you're implying that you're not. No, it's a lot more than an implication. It's,
no. But you see,
you know what? It's the reality of the situation. I'm just saying, it's a real thing.
You're seeing it backwards again. Remember, we're all viewing time happening in reverse. Our comprehension is backwards.
I get it. I'm just
so it's not that the reality is that you are not secure without it, and so you feel that way. It's the implication is what makes that reality happen. The only reason you're not secure is because there are so many hazards presented as a result of this.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
So it's this kind of, again, a kind of indentured slavery sort of scenario where you are you're essentially placed in a debt scenario where you're needing to pay a debt. And
you start out below zero, kind of.
Where does this idea come from? This needing to pay a debt idea. I seem to recall that somebody saying that we're born in sin and that we have to redeem ourselves. See how these systems they're all the same thing. There's no division here. It's all built on the same program, same system, same